That's what this pointed to on there. And if it doesn't make you teary-eyed, I don't know what will. That's amazing. Okay, now, with all of that over, we're going to start today's lesson. Oh, no. Another pop-up. All right, guys. Here it is. Ham orchards.
Oh.
Ham orchards. In Terrell. Strawberry and peach ice cream. Tuesday, 5:31.
Fried pies.
We're gonna have lunch and ice cream and shop the market right there. And I added something to here. Some of you, it's easier for you to go on out there because you're close that way. But for others, rest of us, if we'll meet in front of the church, there might be somebody that doesn't want to drive, and surely we can pick up a little carpool right there. So we'll meet, and then we'll leave at 11. If you come at 11:01, we're gone. But I think this will be a fun one. How many think you would go to that? Oh, man. Not a lot. Y'all gonna miss out on good ice cream.
I'd be there if I was in town.
Yeah, I bet you would.
Have a hair appointment.
I went last weekend and had the swirl, strawberry and peach.
Yeah.
It was great.
That's the way to do it, isn't it? Well, there's the menu over there, so what day is it next week? Tuesday. What time we meet at the church?
11.
Before 11.
Right.
No later
Ah,
than.
no later than, yeah, wait a minute.
The bus leaves
Okay.
at 11.
Finally, we get to go to today's lesson.
Tuesday night.
Okay, what's the main difference between Paul's writing in 1st and 2nd Timothy against his writings for the Corinthians and Thessalonians? What's different about these? Anybody have an idea? Okay,
Corinthians and Thessalonians, I believe he's writing to the church. And Timothy, he's writing to Timothy.
that's exactly right. Boy, that guy's good, isn't he? He told me he read it. Paul's letters in 1st and 2nd Timothy are written to one individual, Timothy. Where the writings in Corinthians and Thessalonians were written to the church members. So that you have to kind of remember that, especially as we do chapter 5 here. Because he really gives Timothy some instructions. He said, do not rebuke an older man harshly, but exhort him as if he were your father. Treat younger men as brothers, older women as mothers, and younger women as sisters with absolute purity. Now, these two verses should have been put, I think, back in last Sunday's lesson in chapter 4. I'll show you why. Timothy chapter 4, that's last Sunday. And in these verses to say, if you point out these things to the brothers and sisters, you will be a good minister of Christ Jesus, nourished on the truths of the faith and on the good teaching that you have followed. So he's telling Timothy to point out the mistakes these people are making. And that's what was in chapter 4. But when we get chapter 5, he said, but do not rebuke an older man harshly, but exhort him as if he were your father. Treat younger men as brothers, older women as mothers, and younger women as sisters with absolute purity. You see the instruction that he's given to Timothy? Yeah, you need, from last week, to point out people what they're doing wrong. And the big one there is they're trying to hang on to their gods. They wanted to have our God, and they wanted to have their pagan gods as well. And that's some of the things he has to point out to them. Next, Paul gives Timothy some instructions about widows and about grandparents. He said, give proper recognition to those widows who are really in need. Why would I underline really?
Really.
Somebody speak up. What do you think?
For widows?
If they don't,
Because
The word really.
if they are okay without help, then they don't need help.
You're
I
good.
mean,
That's exactly right.
take your resources to the people that really need it, that don't
Yeah,
have.
and he'll go into more detail, but you're right. Yeah, Pat?
And he also said if they have children, the children are responsible too.
Yeah, we're gonna get that in these
Oh,
scriptures,
yeah.
just following it, yeah.
Yeah, hang on to that one.
So, so it's obvious from this statement there are probably some widows that don't need to be helped in the church at Ephesus, that's where Timothy is. But if a widow has children or grandchildren, these should learn first of all to put their religion into practice by caring for their own family and so repaying their parents and grandparents, for this is pleasing to God. This is what Pat was talking about right there. So there's a difference when those that really need help and those widows, they're getting help from the parents and the grandparents. See, it makes more sense when you know he's just talking to Timothy about that. You don't tell the whole church, you let him implement the way he thinks best. The widow who is really in need and left all alone puts her hope in God and continues to pray night and day, to pray and to ask God for help. For some, this is just common sense. Give proper recognition to those widows who are really in need. And that's what the separation part of it is, because of the parents. If the widow has children or grandchildren, they are to take care of the needs of this widow. That will be new for those people in Ephesus to hear this kind of message. Look what Paul says next. But the widows whose lives lives for pleasure is dead even while she lives. Give the people these instructions so that no one may be open to blame. So now he's going to have to take what he's heard from Paul and he's going to give it to the church in Ephesus. Paul states that the women who live for pleasure and spiritually dead, even though she is still alive in the body. Anyone who does not provide for their relatives and especially for their own household has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. So if you don't do your part for your parents, in this case we don't have any, but the children, the grandchildren, that's a pretty bold statement about Paul. Comparing that attitude to an unbeliever. Actually, it is a bold warning for those who do not take care of their relatives, and especially the widows. That's a bold statement. You're like unbelievers.
Well, back then, people didn't have a way of making a living like we do today.
No, that's true.
And even though we have, because my cousin went through that. Her daughter was diabetic and couldn't help her. But the state didn't want to help her either. She was a stay-at-home mom and a widow. Her husband died young, and her doctor told her to go to Parkland. I'd go from Quinlan to
Right.
Grand Prairie to Parkland, take us all day.
Yeah.
She couldn't get food stamps because she owned a house and a car worth more than $2,000. Her doctor denied her because she didn't have insurance anymore when he died. I thought, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
today this happens a lot to the widows and stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that until I helped Jackie.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. And it's biblical even way back then,
So what Paul's trying to do is push those one way and the ones that really need help this way. And have a gap between them so we know what we're doing.
But our government's supposed to be helping. But
Yeah,
they
well.
really don't.
We're not talking
They
about our
really don't
government.
help the right ones.
No widow may be put on the list of widows unless she is over 60. Man, he's getting right down to it. Has been faithful to her husband and is well known for her good deeds, such as bringing up children, showing hospitality, washing the feet of the Lord's people, helping those in trouble, and devoting herself to all kinds of good deeds. That's the qualifications that Timothy can use to get. There is no actual list, even though that One version calls it a list. It's not a list. Reading between the lines, it appears that the church in Ephesus is having disagreements on who should and who should not receive assistance. Nearly all churches deal with the problem of who do I help and who do I not help. All churches face that.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of con artists that come to your church. Oh, my baby's sick. I got to drive to Florida. I don't have gas money. You know, they don't want that. Most of them. There are some that's real, but there's so many of them that's not it. When we were in the little church in Richardson, the pastor called some of the deacons in after church and said, "Y'all got to help me out." He said, "I got people when y'all are gone in the week and y'all are at business working." He said, "I got people coming here and say, I need money, I need this, I need milk money, I need baby food." And he says, I don't know which ones I'm supposed to help and which ones I'm not. The more you help, others hear about it, here they come. So it is a battle, and I'm sure the same thing here. This church has got so much ability to reach all these people, it wouldn't hurt if they gave it to somebody that didn't deserve it. But when you're a little church like we were going to, that was a lot. You know, we had like 100 in Sunday school, 125 in church in Richardson. But the pastor was pleading. I don't want to tell somebody no. So they tried to work some things that, okay, I will go with you to the grocery store and I will pay for the groceries. Okay, that was one way of
That's a
established.
good
You
one.
know, Jan helped, our group helped that lady that was
Yes.
from Katrina.
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
helped her get a job, and Jan took her on the, whatever that thing's called, thank you, I don't ever have to write that thing, but anyway, she took her and showed her how to do it, and then she got on her own, and,
Yeah.
you have somebody to be able to fend for themselves, but people that keep coming
Yeah,
back,
let me,
and that's
I hadn't planned on talking about that, but that's a good one. When Katrina hit, this church was trying to adopt some families that had had nothing to go back to. So our class volunteered to take a family. We had a grandmother, the mother, and 2 kids, I think that was what it was. And they put them up in, I don't know if it's apartments or a hotel over here. But we found them a job. Jan Davis, now Jan Webb, found her a job at the county jail downtown. And so she said, well, you can ride the train down there. And the girl said, okay. Jan says, I'll meet you on your first day of work, or before the first day of work, and you and I will ride the train down there. I'll show you where you walk to, there's where you're gonna go, and show you how to get back home. Now that's really neat, that's really neat. And with no transportation, I think Ernest found us a car for a reasonable rate and got out of the car. But that apartment had nothing inside of it for these people. So we need bathroom stuff, we need kitchen stuff, they had a
got
couple of
furniture.
beds, I think.
We got furniture.
Yeah,
We got
furniture, yeah.
We got them from.
And this class, we said, get it all down here quick. In 24 hours, we had so much that 3 SUVs were full of stuff. Well, there's duplicates in there, so Jan and them took it, I think, to her house, and they scattered it out to make sure, and then gave the leftover back to the church, because we don't need duplicates. But yeah, and that's really neat. And Glenn and I took the 2 kids to the school they're supposed to go to. And I think we took them to get her driver's license from Louisiana to Texas. That was a need. That was a need. She never, I don't think, took advantage of us on anything. She was very appreciative, and on that trip back, Jan stopped. The girl said, I need some boots. Okay, we went to the Army Navy store. That's the kind of boots I want. Because I guess she's going to be a guard or doing something in that area, and she needed those big old boots. And Jan paid for them and got her the boots. But we never had them take advantage of it. And that thing about that was all of a sudden, boom, And so I'm real proud of the class and what we did with that. It was amazing, wasn't it? Sometimes God puts something in your path, and then he steps back to see what you're going to do with it. If it's Eva, she's going to give anything they want.
I just did.
She's got such a heart, great heart.
I took a reef off my door and took it down the hall, put it on the door of a little lady that doesn't have anything.
Yeah.
And she loves it.
What about your guy at Walmart?
I haven't been to Walmart in a while. I guess he's missing me. Does anybody ever see him anymore? You talking about Arnis?
The
The
one,
homeless guy?
the
homeless guy.
homeless guy that was at Walmart
Yeah,
that
I
you,
haven't seen him, so of course I haven't
she
been
had
over
even
there.
gone down and, what, you 3 days or something at a hotel down there? for
Oh,
him to
yeah, I
go
went
in,
down and
clean
paid
up,
for
and
his-
shower, and get everything.
Yeah, I've done that several times.
That's amazing, yeah.
And I give him money, and I bought him T-shirts.
But don't let God put something in front of you and you miss it. You know? And he'll show you what kind of help people need on there.
Right.
But to Timothy, Paul's saying, you know, we've got to watch how we do this and not miss the ones that need it the most.
Because that happens.
We in this church, we have food pantry, you can contribute to Cornerstone Clothing, people needing money to buy baby food, people that say they're going from one state to another need gas money. That happens a lot in Texas. Say from one to the other. Yes.
That just happens with people that's going down the street and sees the church and come in here, you know, they don't belong here.
Yes.
That happens at Walmart.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a little gas can. Can you give me money in your soda?
I just did.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll put some gas in.
Yeah.
No, just give me the money and I'll do it.
But it's hard, isn't it? You don't want to turn down somebody that need it, and so you say, well, I'll go anyway with it. And that's a good thing. Ken?
When we lived in DeSoto, they had a central clearinghouse for all the churches of every denomination, so that when the people, the rafters, tried to get more money, they went to the one church, and they made sure that at least any other churches in DeSoto, that they only got, you know, just
Right.
one helping hand.
That's a good plan. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
That is what we did in Quinlan, because there were so many people double dipping at Christmas.
Mhm.
And through the constable, they filled out paperwork. But now the constable quit doing that, and this little guy took it over. And he said, I don't care if they're rich, poor, whatever, they just come in. I said, that's not really what it's about. It's supposed to be for the needy
Yeah.
that needs toys for the kids at Christmas.
There's always that middle ground that you can't see if they go over here, you know, you sometimes put pressure, just like the pastor was in Richardson. He just said, you know, I don't know what to do. I don't want to be a pastor that turned them down and then found out they died or something. So it's hard, and it's here today. But here's some of the things, clothing at Cornerstone, down south Dallas. When they come in there, they go into the laptop and they pull up their name and their number and they see what you got this month or got last
Yeah.
month. And for instance, you can only get one jacket or coat per year. Because see, they'll take that stuff and go out and sell it and come out and get another one. And so they have it mechanized right now, so they know that you were here last week and here's what you got. And I think they have to go 2 weeks, they can't go back-to-back weeks. It's usually on a Thursday they're doing that. So some of it's hard to do. So here's Paul trying to tell Timothy, this is how you do it. He's trying the best that he can.
Well, when we all went down there, I think everybody ought to go and really experience that and see how there are people, the way they live.
Yeah,
You know,
we
you walk
really
out there, you
should.
count your blessings. And, you know, I'm gonna give Ernest $20 when I see him. I don't care if he goes buy a cigarette or beer or whatever. That's not my point.
Yeah.
My point is because I feel a need to give
It's
to
in your
him.
heart. That's right. You
And
do what
allow
you
God
feel
to
is
do
right. Yeah. Yeah, she makes a point, even though, if you've ever been down to Cornerstone in that clothing building in there and see what goes on, wow. The biggest problem down there is wintertime, they can't find socks. So we collected a couple months ago.
And
And the
underwear.
rest of the time, now they have showers down there, so they'll pick up all new clothes to go in and say, you throw your old clothes away or you want them? If they want them, we put them in a plastic bag. They say, but don't throw my underwear. You have to put on his dirty underwear with a clean body and clean clothes. And that's the hard one to see. So At the end of this lesson, I address that. So we're gonna be collecting next week underwear to go to Cornerstone. So if you get an email and it says, don't forget your underwear when you come to class, you can't not understand that. That'll get your attention. So we just did the bottom of the lesson. Anyway.
That's what I had to pray about years ago when we started doing it. Because it was once a month and we buy the jeans, and I told her, and I said, they need to have something that helps them get off the streets, not just keep
That's true.
donating to
Yeah.
them to be. But a lot of them are Vietnam vets and come back and mentally are disturbed. They're just not people off the street. And we met this one lady. She said she couldn't work. She's from Lake Point. She said, I couldn't work down there because my brother was homeless and he didn't have to be. But he lived that way. And she said, I put him on our prayer team and it took him a year and he is off
Okay.
being homeless. Then we met this other little guy that was buying jeans the same, and he said, I was homeless and I thank God that there was somebody to help me get through it. So they do turn around. You may not see it, but they do, because I really was praying about that, because
Well,
I told Ernest, I need to stand down there and
He
tell
was
them.
right. If
Move on.
everybody just had to go down there one Thursday and visit, we might look into doing that just to see what goes on. Then you come back and you know what's happening there. And they're trying to keep Ernest called him once and said, Pastor Chris, and said, I've got some men's cowboy boots, I think.
Yeah.
And do you want me to bring them down there? He said, no. They'll just go sell them. Bring it to me at my church. I have people in the church that come every Sunday, and they have needs too. And I thought, wow, how good was that? Thinking like that. Yeah, you can't give these real fancy tennis shoes or sneakers to them because somebody will steal them or they will sell them. So it's kind of hard. Bill.
You know, we had a life group leader that was down there one time, and they was coming in, and this guy needed some underwear, but they didn't have any. So this life group leader had clean underwear he put on that day, took him down there.
Oh.
He went to the bathroom, took his off, and gave it to him.
There you go. Get the shirt off your back.
He said life group leader, wasn't me.
But another time we had another guy in there, he came up to me and said, I've seen you before, and I said, I don't remember you.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, I've seen you before. And I said, where'd you see me at? Well, I was in jail and you was at Parkland guarding me.
Well,
You was my guard.
you know, this is good discussion. I think it's great because we face the same thing. Who do I help? Who do I don't? And how much do I help? Okay.
Well, my daughter did that for years too. She did the homeless down there, the apartments, they have apartments. And she said, well, they give them to the church people. I said, well, Kim, if you think about it, just because they're in the church doesn't mean that they don't have needs.
Sure,
And
sure.
so the church people should come first.
Yeah.
And it's okay for them to give what we give down
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
because
Pastor Chris is on
Chris
top of that. He knows who in his church
Yes,
has
he
needs
is on
too.
top of it, and he's very trustworthy to see.
All right, Linda?
Marlene, didn't you say that there's more women though coming down to Cornerstone now?
There was, I haven't talked to Pastor Chris this past week. Last time he said they had plenty, but yes, since all the foreign people are coming and the hurricanes and the storms, the fires, a lot of people are
I
coming.
mean, so women need stuff?
Oh,
Well, what
yes, we do women,
Okay, let's back up a minute. Wait.
but
It's mostly men.
mostly,
And so if they get a lot of women's clothes, they put them in a big bag and they were sending them to another charity for women. And that's what they were doing.
Yes.
Because they don't get a lot of women. And if you put women's clothes out, it wouldn't be much, I don't think. So by sending it to another volunteer organization that caters to the women, that's better. Pat?
but they do.
I remember several years ago, when we were going down on the bus, I don't know if they still do that now or not, and breakfast, you get up at 5 and come here to the bus. And my first trip, oh my word, I got back on that bus, we were going home, and I was just crying. I told that bus driver, I don't know if I can take this or not. He said, all I got to tell you that most of these people wouldn't take a house if you offered it to them. They like the street life.
Yeah.
So I didn't
Yeah.
feel so bad then. I thought, well, they're doing what they want to do.
What we need is for Paul to write a letter to this class. Go to Timothy.
And that's because mental, they're not there. My a little ex-daughter-in-law, her brother died homeless on the street. He didn't have to be there, but because he is in the war, something happened to him, and they all offered trying to help him, but like you said, he died of heat stroke under a tree in Dallas at the park.
Okay, we're gonna cut this off for a minute because I want to get to this. The next 5 verses, Paul talks about the younger women. Y'all are younger. He said for younger widows, not just women, younger widows, do not put them on such a list, for when their sensual desires overcome their dedication to Christ, they want to marry. Thus they bring judgment on themselves because they have broken their first pledge. What he's saying, we already have established that there is no physical list, but there is a mental grouping of those women that need support in the church. And that's a hard one, and he's writing that to Timothy. He's a young guy and young in the ministry as well. Paul is telling Timothy not to put your younger women into this grouping. Younger women can go out and get a job, do things. Paul is saying that these young widows will put their desires to marry ahead of their desire to follow Christ. I mean, that's their goal. They get married so somebody can take care of me, and then they drop the desire to follow Christ. But Paul had more to say about these young women. Besides, they get into the habit of being idle and going from house to house. And not only do they become idlers, but also busybodies who talk nonsense, saying things they ought not to say. Boing out. Again, strong words from Paul. My mom used to say, you know what I'm going to put up here, don't you? 'Cause your mom probably said the same thing. Well, I'm sorry, I went backwards. Idle hands are the devil's workshop. And that's in Proverbs, so it's just, I didn't know my mom quoted a lot of scripture. She probably didn't
I
either.
say that to my grandsons.
Yeah.
Just
Idle hands, okay. Paul went on to say that not only these young widows, idlers, but also busybodies who talk nonsense, saying things they ought not to do. We got a word for that?
Gossip.
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 Maybe the word gossip fits.
You
I
don't have to
put
be
maybe.
young to
Huh?
gossip. You hear old people being gossip.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be young.
No, he's talking about the young ones here.
Yeah.
The younger ones, their desire is to marry, to have somebody to take care of, and they just leave God, and they're chasing up any men they can get so that they can be taken care of. So Paul hadn't missed anything in this thing. What was that?
So let's talk about the men for a while.
Yeah.
Oh, no, men are fine. You'll have to keep coming Sunday after Sunday to see if he talks
That's
about the
why they
men.
all go outside and do their gossip and coming in here and letting us hear them.
Andy Griffith does a good show on gossip, men and women. If you ever catch him, we watch Andy at our house a lot.
Not me.
Carolyn moved the chair away from him.
We're older, so we
Okay, let's get back to this. Paul does not tell Timothy to ignore these young women, okay? But to counsel them and encourage them to marry, raise children, and don't give Satan a chance to do his thing, because Satan will go after those people. In the next verses, Paul explains to Timothy why he gave such detailed instructions for the young widows. If any woman who is a believer has widows in her care, she should continue to help them and not let the church be burdened with them, so that the church can help those widows who are, there's that term again, really in need. So a lot of them can be taken care of outside the church. It was not uncommon for a woman to take in a young widow and care for her until she remarries. Okay. Paul says that these women should continue helping young women so that the church could help the people that are really in need. In these next verses, good time, yeah, Paul leaves the subject of widows and he begins to speak about the elders and the preachers. Not teachers, though, the class teachers. The elders who direct the affairs of the church well are worthy of a double honor, especially those, there it is, the men get honor. Pat was waiting for that. Especially those whose work is preaching and teaching. Well, one. For Scripture says, do not muzzle an ox while it is treading out the grain, and the worker deserves his wages. What about that? Do not muzzle an ox while he's treading the grain.
I think that fits you.
Huh?
Well, because if you muzzle them, they can't do their work. And if he's referring to a teacher,
Yeah.
if you muzzle them, you can't teach what you need to be teaching.
Well, that part is good. Actually, it says don't muzzle him. It was common for them to not, and he could eat the grain as he was working. They allowed it. So allow the teacher, the preacher, the worker their due respect. I think we put it. Paul tells Timothy to recognize and honor those who carry out the business of the church and those who teach and preach. And that quote came from Deuteronomy 25. Do not muzzle an ox while it is treading out the grain. And you give the update version of that. Don't limit what Josh Howard can preach. Don't tell him you can't do this and do that. Don't muzzle a preacher or a teacher or any others like that. What does that mean? The idea behind the law is not to muzzle an ox while it's working to produce grain, is the ox deserves to partake in some of his own labor. And so the command is to not muzzle the ox. This means they allow him to eat from part of his labor while he treads out the grain. Paul was telling Timothy the elders and preachers and teachers deserve honor and respect. Respect, Eva. Respect, Eva.
Okay, I'm trying.
And just like the oxen, they deserve to be rewarded for. I'm just waiting for my raise to come through. Now, I'm not going to read the rest of it because I'm going to skip down.
Because it says something about me.
Yeah.
Muzzle
There it is. During the month of June, we are collecting men's underwear to the homeless at Cornerstone in South Dallas. You're not to bring underwear every week in the month of June. You decide when and how much to bring. No one is keeping up with who brings and who doesn't. There's nothing like that. I've asked Wanda to get in contact with the guy, I think his name is Adrian, that has to make sure things get picked up. See if we can't get a box in here, Merle Life Group, because I brought a big cardboard box in, we put socks in it, but they took the box and didn't bring it back. So see if we can get something in there.
Hey Wallace, we brought underwear today, so should we take our underwear back and bring it back next week?
I guess.
if you didn't wear it, yeah.
Who said that?
No, they're still unopened.
Okay, y'all understand kind of now the need for that underwear down there. We had one occasion we went down there And they got really excited because there was a guy, he looked like late 20s, early 30s. He was going for a job interview the next day or two, and he didn't have clothes. I tell you, he was waited on hand and foot by about 5 women running around. I found a tie, I found a coat. And he was going to go out for a job interview. And it was really exciting because you don't see that happen real often down there.
I tell you something else that we experienced, I did, was that they need something like shirts or jackets for the bigger guys.
Okay. Yeah. All sizes. You can buy the bigger underwear.
No.
Part of the reason we do it this way, we don't collect money for this. For you to partake in this ministry, you have to go out to a store, you have to buy it, check out, take it home, and on Sunday bring it in here. That's what I call a hands-on to serve. And a very worthy cause when we do this.
What
It makes sense.
sizes do they need more than others? I mean,
They do all sizes,
Yeah.
but basically would be 38, 36, because the smaller can wear the bigger, but the bigger can't wear the smaller. That's what they do with pants, you know, like in the
I
jeans.
think that's pretty good logic.
That's a good way to explain it.
In the jeans and stuff, if they use ties, they use,
Okay.
it better have belts to tie them.
Well, we gotta have left field a lot today, didn't we?
But it's
I love it. And somebody said, well, you want briefs or you want boxes? We don't care.
No.
Whatever you feel like buying. Some of you ladies gonna go up there and put 2 packages of underwear and they're gonna look at you like, what? And that's your time to witness. It goes to Cornerstone, to the homeless people. So that's the biggest need, one of the biggest. Jeans is always a big need. But anyway, we're gonna participate in this part. Okay. The items that are most running out is socks and underwear. There's a picture down there. And I don't know if they still do it this way. It's been several years ago when we were down there. You get a name badge, has your first name only, and they have a sticker, has their first name on it. And you introduce yourself to him and you just walk him through. He can get a long sleeve shirt, short sleeve shirt, he can get a pair of jeans and one other kind of pants. And if there's any shoes, there's very seldom there. And so they get their stuff and then they check out, but it's recorded, so they don't come back next week, it's the same thing again. So that was one of the pictures I found.
And we were also instructed to say, God bless you,
Yeah, yeah,
when we got through.
yes. So I skipped over some stuff, but you guys were great today. Y'all really did a good job for me. We can help people. And the underwear, you know, is going to a worthy cause. And you'll have to quit giving that guy some money, buy some socks.
I'll do
Underwear.
both, thank you.
Eva and Paula Ray were the most
Yes.
giving of any of the people we've ever had in this class.
We saw him at Walmart this last week, and there was a lady that was giving him money, so he's out and about, and people take good care of him in Walmart.
It sounds like it, yeah.
And he
Okay.
always thanks you,
Yep.
always very polite and says thank you.
Okay, let's have a close in prayer, and I thank you for participating.